Hi everyone. So, I've just spent the last 6.5 hours watching a total of 61, I believe, Wild Bill for America videos. For those of you who have not been subbed to me for a long time or might not remember, I did a thing where I went through all of Wild Bill for America's videos that he had done at that time, 53 videos. And I had told Coughlin jokingly that when he got up to about, oh, I'll pwn him again when he gets like another 54 or 55. And we all had a good laugh. But since then, every time Wild Bill has done a new video, Coughlin has sent me a running count of how many videos he's done. And so I wasn't able to do it right away because I had school, and I was going to wait until tomorrow because I haven't slept yet since Thursday. But, I was sitting here around 4 in the afternoon. I just said, you know what? I really should just go for this because why not? Why not just do this? So here we are. Here's Ragnarok 2. 60... oh my god. Like, I don't know if I'll have the energy or the ability to do this as good as rather, as the first time I did this. But these videos are even worse. They're even worse. And I actually filmed the 6.5 hours of me watching it, and Skep's going to go through it over the next few days and just cut out some of the choicer bits. Uploading it all will be kind of pointless because a lot of it's me typing and looking stuff up or getting up because the anger's... Fuck what? Alright, let's just get started. So, the first video that he does is Secret Service Secrets. In this video, he again claims falsely to have been a U.S. Marshal. That's a lie. He was temporarily deputized. But he talks about how great the Secret Service is, and he had been a U.S. Marshal, which he wasn't. He would have been in the Secret Service, because they're also kind of okay. So he claims that in this video to have talked to one of his Secret Service buddies, which he doesn't actually have, and that he reads off all of these claims where, like, basically magically every single Democratic president and their family were just a bunch of rich, mean, elitist snobs, these Secret Service members. But the GOP presidents were universally loved, as were their families by the Secret Service, because they had respect and dignity and honor. The problem is, though, that every single claim he read, both good for the GOP and bad for the Democrats, well, come from a chain letter, a viral letter that was written about Ronald Kessler's book in the President's Secret Service, behind the scenes with agents in the line of fire and the presidents they protect. Now, the author says the stories from the author of that book, Ronald Kessler, says the stories from that chain letter about Clinton and Obama, some of which Wild Bill read out in his video, they're actually fake, and there's nothing like that in his books. And there's both flattering and unflattering stories about virtually every president from both parties since during the time frame covered by the book. So it's not that all the GOP people were just really great and all the Democrats were just scumbags. It's actually that they had good points and bad points, and that was the whole point of the book. Now, some of the stories obviously can't be proven because, not really signing their name to it typically, the Secret Service members, but there we go. So Wild Bill not only is a liar, he's also plagiarizing a rather well-known viral email, or one of several viral emails, and claiming his contacts in the Secret Service told him about that. Alright, second video. It's kind of hard to pwn these videos because he makes like 5, Tea Party convention videos where it's like less than a minute long. But I did every single one of them. Don't have a lot to say, but I still found at least one thing to attack. So he says the Tea Party is the greatest political movement of all time. Apparently, there's been no other movement that comes anywhere close to the Tea Party in terms of scope, scale, goals. Gee, I would have thought maybe like the abolitionist movement might have been a great political movement too. Maybe the movement to actually get the United States involved in World War II, that might be another good movement. I would say, the Civil Rights Movement, maybe that was a pretty good political movement. Martin Luther King Jr., whom Wild Bill for America falsely claimed as a Republican. I'm not joking. But no, all of those pale in comparison to the might, the grandeur of the Tea Party, which has utterly failed to accomplish anything it's really wanted to do other than halting the progress of civilization. He also says there's to be America's best speakers and patriots there, including some comedian named Steve Cruiser. Who the fuck is Steve Cruiser? I haven't heard of half of these supposedly great comedians and speakers and authors. I've never even heard of them. And I tried Googling some of them and I couldn't even find them. Like Steve Cruiser, unless he has some really oddly spelled name, nothing. Nothing on him on Google. There is no comedian Steve Cruiser from what I can tell. Like, who are these people that he says are so great? But of course, again, they're apparently so great. I guess this is just a product of my non-existent public school education brainwashing me, so all knowledge of it has just been erased from my mind, even though I went to private schools. Christian, evangelical private schools, by the way. So let's go on to the third video I pwned, or went through, because I didn't quite pwn the Tea Party one, but that's kind of hard. Let's see. America's liberalologist. Apparently, Wild Bill, like he likes to claim in almost every video, he's America's leading liberalologist. Because, you know, making up degrees and professions is fun. For example, I'm a Wild Bill for Americaiatrist or something. I don't know. But apparently we can just make up qualifications now and fake degrees, because that's what Wild Bill does. He already made up the fact he was a U.S. Marshal, so why not make up a fake profession, too? You know, he also says that, like, liberals have delusions of intelligence. Liberals always think they're intellectually superior to others. They cling desperately to these illusions by working in the shadowy bowels of universities, because it's easy to seem intelligent when surrounded by uneducated youngsters. And he says they studiously avoid honest debate with knowledgeable adults because such contact threatens to destroy their fantasy world. See, the funny thing is, other than the whole part about being in the shadowy bowels of university, well, I don't know, maybe you could be a janitor in one, so that might potentially apply for you. All that other stuff seems to qualify for you. You try and basically deal with uneducated youngsters or people with the, I guess, knowledge and awareness of a youngster. And you try and avoid honest debate, because all you can really do is just use these strawman arguments that don't actually apply to any liberal or moderate or anyone who's ever actually existed in the history of man. You know, and you don't like it when people challenge you, which is why the one or two times you've actually referenced something that someone has said to you on the internet that's actually happened, you've chosen, like, the absolute worst example, but I'll get to that later. You also say that liberals have truthophobia, and that some experts literally believe that they are allergic to certain universal truths. Now, 2 + 2 = 4 doesn't seem to affect them, but look a liberal right in the eye and say, one man, one woman, and look what happens. Sorry, there's no such thing as universal moral truth, and one man, one woman isn't necessarily a universal moral truth either, because multiple people in the Bible had multiple wives and God was fine with that. So it seems like your little universal moral truth thing doesn't quite work out there, does it, buddy? See, 2 + 2 = 4 is like a mathematical constant sort of thing, whereas, you know, who can marry who, or whom can marry who, or whatever, is kind of up to cultures and society to decide. And there's really nothing wrong with a man marrying a man, or a woman marrying a woman, or I suppose multiple people marrying multiple people. Why is it any of your business, Bill? You sure seem to like to call the liberals a bunch of intolerant tyrants who just want to interfere in everyone's lives, yet you don't want people to do what they want to do in their private lives, Bill. Seems like a little bit of a contradiction there, buddy. Might want to get that taken care of. I hate him so much. Then he says he shouldn't make fun of liberals, but one of his hobbies is... I really wish... I'm already breaking, and I'm like 3... One of his hobbies is, quote, throwing holy water at vampires, which he says, quote, means speaking bold truth to liberals, because just like in the movies, if you say a moral truth to a vampire, it starts hissing and run away and calling you names and flees the scene. All those vampire movies where you just go up to a vampire's about to get you, and all you have to say is, marriage is between a man and a woman, and it just runs away screaming. Like, do you watch Twilight? I mean, I don't know what vampire movies you watch, dude. But then he talks about liberal Tourette syndrome. Fuck shit. When confronted with moral truth, they resort to foul language and name-calling. He says the big four: racist, Nazi, bigot, hate-monger. I would add these four that you like to call people, Bill. Hippie, commie, traitor, appeaser. You know, you tend to do that. So don't you tend to just resort to name-calling? And you might not necessarily be foul in your language, Bill, but the ideas that you espouse are foul. And so I'm sorry, just because you're not swearing doesn't mean what you're saying is okay. He also says that liberalism starts with the terrible twos. They don't learn the golden rule and thus don't grow up, and the term progressive means they're trying to progress out of childhood. He also supports paddling your children. Gotta be specific there. He also says that progressives/liberals are 2-year-olds who think the world revolves around them. Then why are they in favor of all these social programs to help everyone else that you hate so much, Bill? That I'll explain a lot later in the other videos, and I explained in my first video about this several months ago. You know, you're sitting there desperately trying to cling to any money you can get out of the system, but they want to actually give more money to people who need it. What do you do to help others? I mean, you sort of seem to think you're some great intellectual giant who just runs around helping people all the time, yet you constantly attack anyone who has to rely on the government for any welfare. Well, I'll get to the welfare stuff in a bit. But you're a douchebag, Bill. Oh, I'm sorry. I should have called you one of the big four, huh? Let's see, 4. This is another running theme. The friendship of Israel. He says, Israel has been one of America's best friends since its creation. Not quite sure about that. They haven't really attacked us other than the accident with the Liberty. And they think a spy that stole a bunch of stuff from us and gave it to them should be pardoned. I wouldn't call them our best friend. He also says that if you're using a cellular phone, it's Israeli technology, which, as far as I'm aware, is untrue because Martin Cooper headed the team that developed the first handheld mobile phone. And he actually made the first phone call on one, and he worked for, it wasn't Bell, Motorola. He worked for Motorola, you know, an American company. And so an American company apparently invented this Israeli technology, unless I'm seriously missing something. If you want to go back before then, you want to talk about the mobile car phone systems, the old MTS system, that was Ma Bell back in '46. So I don't think cellular technology, mobile phones are Israeli. I could be mistaken here. I mean, unless we're talking about digital or something, but again, you didn't even name who made them. He apparently doesn't know that the United States is not the same thing as Israel sometimes. He kind of gets those wires crossed. He seems to think that all of our interests are exactly aligned all the time. Doesn't quite get that countries have different national interests, even if they're strong allies. He then claims there have been 156 Israeli Nobel Prize winners for medicine and technology. I could only find 10, but maybe he knows where the other 146 have been hiding, and those Nobel Prizes were 1 for literature, 4 for chemistry, 2 for economics, and 3 peace prizes. He also thinks it's our most important strategic ally, more important than apparently the UK, anyone else in NATO, the Republic of Korea, Japan, Australia, New Zealand, all these other countries who have very, very, very strong and important, you know, even like Bahrain, in a lot of ways, that's what the Fifth Fleet is. Apparently, they're not as important as Israel. I kind of would have thought that, you know, the UK might be a bit more important, but what do I know? You know, unlike Bill, I'm not a liberalologist. He claims that, quote, high government officials are abandoning our most important ally in favor of the barbarians. And yes, he's that term. He calls Muslims and then Arabs barbarians. Specifically Arabs, by the way. He claims that the majority of all Muslims, radical and moderates, want to destroy Israel. He also claims that Muslim nations are outright bribing American politicians. He then claims that Arab nations still practice slavery and we're siding with them over the freedom-loving people in Israel. The only Arab nation I know, or quasi-Arab nation, because there's obviously the black Africans there too, the Sudan still has slaves, but then again, so does Cote d'Ivoire, so does the United States, actually, so does most of the Western world and the world in general, because slavery, specifically human trafficking for children and sex, or if not both, is alive and well with about 12 to 14 million people that we know of. or a just rough estimate, being trafficked around the world today. So slavery is alive and well. That evil's still with us. He then generally attacks the evils of Muslim/Arabic culture. He uses the two interchangeably, which is fine. You know, oppression of religious minorities happen. Yeah, beating women. Yeah, which is something I'd kind of surprised he'd speak out against. By the way, knowing him, but then again, he also appeals to the Bible and God that we need to be doing all this stuff and supporting Israel because the Bible says they're God's people. Well, when God comes and speaks in front of both houses of Congress, I'll care what he says in his little Bible. Until then, no, I don't care. Then he has 5, cops' dumbest saying. Wild Bill doesn't like people not resisting criminals. He thinks that everyone should always fight back in every situation whenever they're attacked by a criminal. It's apparently anti-American to avoid being shot. You know, like if a bank robber robs a bank and you lay on the ground instead of trying to go for his gun. Apparently, you're a coward and an anti-American. He also calls Obama a criminal and a tyrant several times during his tirade. He points out a random anecdote about some woman who was robbed, chased down her robber, and then beat the shit out of them with her high heels or something. And he says that any fears of criminals having a gun are just a bunch of whiny BS. And his response to that is, oh yeah? Well, he didn't have a gun and there was a happy ending. I mean, if Bill found out that someone followed his advice and ended up getting shot and killed, would he have the same sort of response? Like, well, they did the American thing. You can get killed by fighting back in a lot of these cases, so sometimes discretion is the better part of valor. Sometimes you don't fight back. I mean, that's kind of, it's better to survive than, get shot. Now, if you can fight back, go ahead, but it's not like some universal truth that you always have to respond with force. He then says, quote, if criminals start getting the snot beat out of them, what would happen to the crime rate? He thinks it would drop. Well, I think if criminals started getting the snot beat out of them because people started punching them in the face, I'm pretty sure that criminals would just start killing people when they attack them instead of, like, letting them live to possibly fight back or report them. I think they would just up the scales and just start, getting more and more violent. Also, too, violent crime is actually decreasing in this country, so I don't know what epidemic of violent crime Bill's referring to. He also thinks that the worst thing you have to deal with if you resist a criminal is some, quote, skin knuckles. A lot of people get killed. You losing your life is kind of a big thing, kind of a bit more serious than skin knuckles. He also thinks he's a guard dog protecting America from the criminal wolves. And I'm pretty sure, if they're not going to be, these criminal wolves aren't going to be afraid of your shiny toy badge, Bill. And, if you're such a guard dog, why aren't you single-handedly going out and fighting MS-13 with your elite federal marshal training you supposedly have? So then, 6, Americans for Israel. He claims that 2 nations at the top of Islamic terrorist hit lists, U.S. and Israel. I don't think that's necessarily true because quite a few Islamic terrorist groups don't care about the United States or Israel, and most of them are concerned with their own regional issues. He then says that Islam is a bunch of, quote, barbarians who have destroyed cultures and nations over 1,000 years. I mean, apparently Bill hasn't ever heard of, Native Americans who occupied the land that he and I sit on now. Where are they, Bill? Where are the Native Americans? Where did they go? What happened to them? Did the evil Muslim barbarian terrorists come here and wipe them out on the jihad? I don't think that's what happened. Or is that just because I've read these liberal, infested textbooks that basically rewrote history on us? What about the Australian Aborigines, the Maya, the Inca, the Aztec, various African cultures? What about the Christian Crusades into Northern Europe that wiped out all the pagans that lived up there? Convert or die. That happened too. Christianity isn't innocent of that, as neither is the West. God. And then he says to stand with Israel, to stand with God. Well, again, not all of us are Christians. Not all of us care about your interpretation of the Bible, even if we were. And I'm not going to let my country's foreign policy be dictated by a poorly edited book of dubious not even dubious. We know it wasn't written by God. But basically, I'm not going to allow my foreign policy to be hijacked by a book of fairy tales at the end of the day. He thinks that the most despicable liberals in America are turning against Israel, like a Barack Obama quote, openly disgracing our nation by disgracing Israel and treating it disgracefully. You ever notice how Bill really doesn't give any specifics for a lot of these claims? Like, he's made this claim before in a few videos. He doesn't actually explain how whatever Obama's doing is disgraceful to Israel. Like, he doesn't actually walk anyone through the steps, provide any sources to anything. He just, I guess, knows his audience is typically too stupid to actually look up any information on it on their own or actually know anything about these subjects, and they're just going to eat it up. So, video 7, Ota Benga. Bill says the Democrats have continuously fought to oppress blacks throughout the United States, and a man named Ota Benga, who is a pygmy, is an example of this. Basically, he was a slave in the late 1800s, early 1900s, that was brought to the United States and was eventually abused by a man named Madison Grant, who was a eugenicist and apparently a progressive. And he put Ota Benga in an ape display at the Bronx Zoo. So Bill says this was to show that evolution was true and whites were better than blacks. A lot of people agreed with that at the time. A lot didn't. Because there's always been, unfortunately, that belief. We go look at what the race realists have been doing here with that about racial hierarchies. But Bill says that only the Christians cared about this, and all the liberals just said they were non-scientific losers, so screw them, they didn't know what they're talking about. I guess Bill's kind of forgetting his religion's own dirty history with slavery, and how Christians also were wildly in favor of slavery in the South, and considered it a just and moral thing. I mean, Bill, it's not like Christianity's really done, has a clean record when it comes to slaves. He then says, quote, "This is what happens when we allow ourselves to be divided by race. Division always breeds animosity and bigotry," which is amusing because he sat there and he's so keen on dividing this country by attacking anyone who is on an ultra-right-wing Christian or Jewish supporter of the Tea Party, or, more specifically, he's an atheist, a Muslim, or an Arab. So he definitely is fine with dividing on politics, definitely fine on dividing on religion, and definitely fine on dividing on race if you're an Arab. The matter of the fact is, you have to go back to the Civil War, every example you give of why the Republicans are so much better than the Democrats when it comes to race relations and treating African Americans better. The fact you have to go back to the 1860s is pretty laughable. You can't pull up anything modern. I mean, seriously, who passed all those Civil Rights Act bill? Because it really wasn't the Republicans. They were not really happy with that, which is, the whole switch came about with the Dixiecrats and all that, aka the modern day basis of the Republican Party. Because the Republicans used to be the liberal party, which I'm sure you probably know, but don't really care about because you're a dishonest fuck. He then references the fact there are still Madison Grant schools in the U.S. and that racism, is what liberalism is all about. Sorry, no, it's not about oppressing blacks, Bill. What's next? Are you going to claim that Martin Luther King Jr. was a secret Republican despite the fact he wanted basically an economic Bill of Rights that would have pushed us much farther to the left than any Democrat in office today does? Alright, sorry. Yeah, kind of already beat me to that with your video. Beating Racism Tea Party style from a few months ago. 23 minutes. Video 8 now, people. United Nations divorce. Wow, I have to defend the United Nations. Fuck, I hate Bill. He says it's the most corrupt and inefficient political organization in the world. Quote, "When free market economies get tired of being robbed by the lazy entitlement gangs and the wealth redistribution thugs, and tell the UN to shove it, he wants free markets to join together to create some new organization that shows how great free markets, low taxes, and small government is." He then references 25 leading nations, but doesn't actually say who they are, who lead the world apparently in technology and finance that will join exclusive trade agreements with each other. He seems to think that the United Nations just takes money from free market countries and just gives it to everyone else. Countries pay voluntarily into these programs. Are you opposed to making sure children eat? and like have medicine and vaccines, because that's a lot of what they do. Do you disagree with fighting global disease? Because global disease can spread here very quickly. Go look at the the Spanish flu in 1918. That spread pretty quickly across the planet. So he thinks that if we left all these like lame countries out of the free market coalition, that they just riot like they are in Greece because they wouldn't be able to pay for the entitlements that they steal from the rest of us, leading to the death of liberalism and socialism. So apparently no liberals in favor of anything resembling capitalism, and apparently our tax dollars get stolen from us to go pay for entitlement programs in other countries. Now, one thing I would find kind of amusing is he's talking about entitlement programs and why they're evil, but he thinks the United States' greatest ally is Israel, and I would assume he's massively in favor of our continued military donations to Israel, our continued foreign aid to Israel, which is amusing because Israel has universal health care and a lot more entitlements than we do. So shouldn't he be telling them to cut the entitlements before we keep giving them money? I mean, really, if they have the money to just waste on entitlements, clearly they can pay for their own national defense, right, Bill? Just a thought. I mean, how much money does Bill think that we give to these countries, and what does he think it actually goes to? He also seems to think that capitalism and freedom are the same thing, which, I mean, I guess, according to him, the People's Republic of China is probably one of the freest countries in the world because of how capitalist it is. There's a lot of reasons to criticize United Nations, Bill, but your idea that it somehow just steals money from the free market to pay for entitlements isn't one of them. It is not one of them. You are just an idiot. And then, video 9, do or die time. He thinks that debt is bad because Bill has, I don't know, he thinks debt is bad because, of course, that's not an obvious statement. You know what, Bill? Yeah, the national debt's really bad. I guess that's why you probably support raising taxes. Oh, right. He thinks raising the debt ceiling is bad. This video is from July. Because, Bill, the greatest thing you could do with debt is default on it and not pay it. Because, not being able to pay your creditors is a good thing, I guess, according to Bill. I mean, I would have thought your years as a lawman that you claim to have spent refereeing, what was it again? Yes, domestic disputes about debt would have maybe educated you on the fact that you actually need to pay back your debts or else bad things happen. Or did you just, burn all your credit card bills, for your entire life? Have you never paid them? He also bitches about how much debt Obama's racked up. Well, maybe if his predecessor wouldn't have tanked the economy, we would have needed a stimulus on a lot of these other packages. He then argues for a fair tax. See, James Pope, your definition of fair matters. And he just says that we just implement that, I guess. He also thinks we need to spend our tax dollars wisely and get a solution now. He thinks that anyone who votes for the debt ceiling increase is a traitor. He also thinks there should be a third political party because the GOP apparently is not batshit insane enough for him today. Video 10. 6 of the way there. Liberal bloc. Quote, in order to say there is no God, the atheist and liberal must have complete knowledge of every fact of the entire universe. End quote. Firstly, atheists and liberals aren't the same thing. Secondly, no, they don't. The point is, there's as much evidence for fucking unicorns or time-traveling dinosaurs as there is for a god, but more specifically, your god. He then tries to say that you can't be an atheist unless you declare there is no god, and you're an agnostic if you say you don't know for a 100% fact, which is not true. Again, there's hard and soft atheism, or Gnostic versus agnostic atheism, strong versus weak. I am an agnostic atheist. I don't know for sure, but that doesn't mean I'm lost on this issue. He then tries to say you can't. Sorry about that. He also says that liberals won't discuss anything honestly. So I guess Bill is now saying he's a liberal because he clearly doesn't discuss anything honestly ever. He also thinks we need to develop liberal bloc to prevent soul cancer. But until then, he thinks people should feel free to pepper spray liberals. He's so happy about Tea Party people getting involved in the local level to take over school boards, state and local elections, etc. He says that's really great, and he's so glad this keeps happening, which is why I keep telling everyone to go vote in local elections, because they matter. They matter a great deal. Even Wild Bill gets this fact, which is why he keeps encouraging people to do this, and why the Tea Party has done some things that are... they've been successful at fucking this up. So, Video 11. Americans for Israel event. It is not the same video, it's just a second video with the same name. He also says that, he leads off, Israel's our only ally in the Middle East, because apparently Turkey, Bahrain, the UAE, even depending on the time of month, Egypt and Yemen and Saudi Arabia are not allies. They don't exist. We've never heard of them, ever. They don't do anything. None of these countries ever work with us. He also says that since Jerusalem has never been the capital of any other nation, no other group has any claims to it. He says that Obama wants to destroy Israel and that the Arab nations all celebrated on 9/11, referring, of course, to the one incident where people in one Palestinian refugee camp celebrated. He thinks that Obama, I wish I was making this up, he says that Obama is a secret Arab supporter and wants Israel dead because he wants it to go back to the pre-1967 borders of adjustments, the stance of the U.S. government over the past 4 decades or so. He also thinks that only the U.S. and the Israel stand up against bullies in the world, even though we are bullies ourselves, and that Obama is siding with the enemy because then he and other politicians can get more money because they've been paid off by dirty Middle Eastern countries. He then says, quote, "Do I have any evidence that would stand up in court? Not yet, but that is the most logical explanation for the strange policies of the liberal left. Because according to Bill, they're not in lockstep with Israel, and apparently just because he doesn't have any evidence that they're Jew-hating traitors doesn't mean that he's not going to slap an anti-Semite label on them and say they want to march the Jews of Israel to the ocean." I'll get back to that in a second. I think a more logical explanation, Bill, is you're just an uneducated idiot who doesn't understand our policy and doesn't understand what our policy's been for the past several decades. He also thinks they're trying to keep us intentionally dependent on keep the U.S. dependent on Arab oil to attack national security. They support things like alternative energy research. Why don't you? Why don't we develop things so we're off of oil entirely, or at least as much as possible? Because then we would never be dependent on anyone else. He also claims that they're providing third-rate national security for our nation. This video was made 2 months after, bin Laden was killed, by the way. There's a great quote Obama gave the other day at a press conference that goes like, quote, "Ask Osama bin Laden, the 22 out of 30 top al-Qaeda leaders who've been taken off the field, whether I engage in appeasement." The president fired back at an impromptu news conference at the White House. "Or whoever's left out there. Ask them about that. The only, Bill, the only person in favor of a third-rate national security plan is you." 12. A real Middle Eastern peace plan. Quote, "Only reason there is no peace in the Middle East is because they keep attacking Israel and they'll never stop attacking Israel." What about Jordan and Egypt? They've had peace treaties with the Israelis for years. What about the Saudis' push for a peace plan? Quite a few people actually support it. He thinks that the Arabs just want to conquer the entire planet. I'm not joking, specifically the Arabs. And Israel's just their first target. It seems to me that most of them are just kind of pissed off about the living conditions in Gaza, as well as the continued expansion of the settlements into Palestinian land. Not that you care what happens to them, because you say they never had that land in the first place, because it doesn't say so in the Bible. He then submits his own peace plan. He says Jordan should give up a 35-mile wide strip of land all across its border so the United States and Israel can build the largest desert warfare training center in history with room for several armored divisions and air forces to train simultaneously. And then he says, now that's what I call a Middle Eastern peace plan. He justifies this by saying that the land isn't Jordan's because Jordan is occupying land that belongs to the Jews. Direct quote. Don't believe me? Read the Bible. So Bill thinks we should remap the Middle East based on the word of the Bible. He also thinks that the Palestinians are just refugees who are forced out of their home countries like Jordan and Syria, and that they're only allowed to live on the Jewish land, so Gaza and the West Bank, because of Israeli graciousness. So in conclusion, Bill thinks all of Palestine and a decent chunk of Jordan should be annexed by Israel, because they're actually Israeli land and there were never any Arabs on there to begin with. 13, oil-tharded. Bill says that liberals keep sabotaging our oil supply and we need to get the Alberta-Texas pipeline built. He then claims Obama has no interest in getting this done and is just selling our future to the jihadists and the Chinese. He claims that all environmentalists just lie, so they're purposely sabotaging America to destroy our nation. Sorry, Bill, there are actual environmental concerns that are important. I know you think the EPA should be dismantled, as you say in a few of your videos, but it actually does a lot of good. Obama only delayed this in November, so after you made your video, by the way, due to massive protests about it. But he's come out repeatedly in favor of the actual pipeline. Bill also says Obama clearly doesn't care about the jobs or the economy, which is, of course, unlike, Bill and the Tea Party, who have spent so much time, focusing on getting jobs bills passed instead of focusing on same-sex marriage and gays in the military. So Bill clearly cares about, economics and getting people working again. 14, the dumb kid vote. Bill says Obama won because of 1, the liberal vote, 2, massive voter fraud, and 3, the dumb kid vote. There wasn't massive voter fraud, Bill. Just shut the fuck up. That's been debunked so many times, it's not even funny anymore. He also thinks that kids voted for Obama because, quote, filthy-mouthed rap stars told them to, and their liberal teachers in school held Obama up as a superstar who would give them lots of free stuff. What country do you live in? I mean, you sat there and literally claimed that they thought they were going to get free cars and their mortgages paid for. I'm just curious, who actually thought this or said this? I kind of want to know where you're getting this from, because if you actually press to back this up and back into a corner, I'm pretty sure you'd probably be able to pull up a few anecdotes out of your ass from really stupid voters who don't know what they're talking about. But you know what? I could do that too, Bill, because I could just point to all the evangelical right-wing Tea Party jackasses like you, well, not necessarily like you, but like you, who think that Obama is the Antichrist, literally the Antichrist. He also thinks that school systems in the U.S. have been dumbed down to help liberals. U.S. history has been replaced with, quote, 101 reasons to hate the United States and Israel and the Christian faith. Bill, maybe if people like you didn't consistently fight for increased funding, consistently fight against increased funding to school districts, our kids wouldn't be in such bad straits. Did you ever think about that? I mean, why don't you go campaign for increased property taxes or excise taxes or whatever to support local school districts who can have better teachers and better education? He again calls for the Tea Party to take over the school boards in America and get Tea Party clubs established in every high school. Oh, and by the way, Hollywood is apparently also responsible for all gun violence in the country. 15. Islam's greatest invention. He claims that Islam invented suicide bombing. Even though I would have thought, since Bill is, of course, someone with a long career in federal law enforcement and had great training and is obviously a master of foreign affairs, hence is a great Middle Eastern peace plan history in the military, that he would know is the LTTE in Sri Lanka that actually started sort of suicide bombing, not Islamic terrorist groups. He also trots out that tired bullshit claim that taqiyya just means Muslims can lie to infidels about whatever. For that, I just have to say, Bill, read a book not by Pamela Geller. He tries again to basically act like Islam is the only religion that has adherents that have never done he tries to say that Islam is the only religion in the world that has adherents that have ever done anything wrong or evil. Because Bill, of course, has been too busy becoming an expert in liberalology to actually study any field of human endeavor. He claims there is no such thing as a Palestinian until after Israel came to be. He correctly points out that the Arabs tried and failed to take out Israel during the creation of Israel, and that the Jordanians... but then he says that the Jordanians and Syrians and Lebanese, who apparently lived there before, just walked out of their homes so they could go get new homes, and all the Jews were killed by the Arabs, the other Arabs. But then when the Arab invasion failed, their home countries told them to get lost, and they couldn't go back to their homes, which were never theirs to begin with, since it all was given to Israel by God. So apparently these Jordanian, Syrian, and Lebanese people who lost their homes, who were apparently living in Israel, I don't understand this, but apparently they were Jordanian, Syrian, and Lebanese, even if they were living in Israel proper. But no Arabs lived in Israel, according to Bill. He also thinks that because there was never an official Palestinian state, he says stuff like, what currency did it use? What was its capital? Therefore, there are no Palestinian people. They have no right to live in the homes and towns that their ancestors have owned for hundreds of years. Screw them. Israel gets it all. So basically, Bill thinks Palestine never had their own state. They don't deserve to have homes, and it should all belong to Israel, and Israel can just kick them all out and annex everything if they want to. And they should. And they should annex part of Jordan. 16. To-do list, number 1. I don't think there's a number 2 in this, but yeah. So Bill's written a to-do list for whatever president replaces Obama in 2012. Let's go over them. 1. Pardon Colonel Terry Locken and let him sue Obama. Bill thinks Locken should be pardoned for refusing to follow a direct lawful order by the commander-in-chief. Locken was a birther who refused to go to Afghanistan because he claimed Obama couldn't legally be president because he's from Kenya, according to Locken. 2, he thinks that the new president, should remove both Sonia Sotomayor and Elena Kagan because they were never properly appointed and replace them with rock-solid conservatives. And if anyone wants to challenge it, no problem. All they have to do is prove that Obama was qualified to appoint them. So basically, that's Wild Bill trying to sneakily admit that he's a birther. He doesn't think Obama could be president because he's born in Kenya, and that's why Obama wasn't qualified to appoint Sonia Sotomayor and Elena Kagan. He thinks that they should retry the Philadelphia Black Panthers for voter fraud because Wild Bill doesn't care about double jeopardy. You don't get the verdict you like the first time, just try them again in Wild Bill country until you can hang them. 4, arrest the officials of every sanctuary city where illegal trespassers are given blanket amnesty, charge them with conspiracy to violate the immigration laws of the U.S., and when convicted, send them to work on chain gangs. I don't know under what authority he wants that to happen, but that's what he wants to happen. 5, cut off federal funding to every college and university campus that has banned ROTC on campus. Kids may have to pay more in tuition. By the way, these are all direct quotes. Ha, I don't care. Kids shouldn't be attending these schools. You know what? Because fuck education. If Wild Bill doesn't like your school, your kid shouldn't go there. I find this funny coming from someone who consistently says that parents should be the ones making decisions about what their kids do in terms of their education, where they should go, and what they should learn. Not some bureaucrat in Washington, but here Bill is saying some bureaucrat in Washington should determine what schools people can go to by funneling around foreign or federal aid. 6, stop all foreign aid pending a thorough investigation. Any nation that has undermined U.S. sovereignty, pilfered the money, or incited hatred of the U.S. should not get a single dollar of U.S. money. Bill thinks we should let poor people starve to death whilst we conduct this quote-unquote review. Sorry, Bill, things aren't black and white. Sometimes you have to help people that live under shitty regimes. 7, let the military decide if they want homosexuals in their ranks. Well, the military seems to be doing fine now that Don't Ask, Don't Tell is gone. Should we have let the military decide about blacks before we desegregated the military, Bill? I mean, cohesion, like you said, is more important than political correctness, am I right? Wonder where you stand on that. 8, issued executive order cutting the pay and pensions of current and former members of Congress by 50%. Clearly, Bill has never read the Constitution. He thinks the President of the United States has the authority to alter the pay of the legislative branch by executive fiat. Sorry, Bill, it doesn't work that way. Congress gets to decide how much they get paid, starting with the next session, not the current one. Do you have a problem with that? Take it up with the founders, who, unlike you, didn't want a god-king to rule over the United States of America. 9, tell the UN that we are embarrassed to be a part of them and we're leaving and they have to pay rent. Well, yeah, the UN sucks, but pulling out of stuff like UNICEF and the IAEA would only harm the United States. It may suck, but it does benefit us to an extent. 10, withdraw every single apology Obama has given on behalf of America, because the only country we owe an apology to is Israel. You're an idiot. Video 17, Legalized Nightmare. A lot of these are actually short, by the way, so I can start knocking through them or something. So Bill thinks that the drug cartels are more desirable. He basically thinks we shouldn't legalize drugs because drug cartels are more desirable than legalizing, regulating, and taxing drugs because the, quote, liberal left would turn it into an entitlement program. Quote, right along with your monthly welfare check would come your narcotics voucher. Oh, and apparently he thinks the Democrats control the sexual pervert vote. Just thought you should know that. And he thinks that the Democrats will just work with the drug cartels to murder police officers and their families, and that we've only tried using the political correctness drug war. He says that we should close off the border to cut off all the drug trade and throw all drug users into chain gangs because that will end drugs, or allow them to not go to prison for the rest of their lives if they give up their citizenship and leave the country permanently. 18. The rat detector. Bill has a problem with rats who get elected and want to clean up politics with his rat detection system. Apparently lawyers are the problem with all of our politics, and they're also super corrupt, and they're the only reason why Congress has a 13% approval rating. Lawyers serving as lawmakers, according to Bill, is a conflict of interest because they just pass laws to help themselves because they also have to work with the law, even though everyone has to work with the law. He says that lawyers are professionally trained to argue for any side, so they're just corrupt by default. He seems to think that the only people who should be in government are business people, doctors, and, like, law enforcement and military people. Except for Michelle Bachmann. Michelle Bachmann gets the Wild Bill seal of approval because she's a good lawyer for some reason. So Bill, I mean, you do realize that, like, businessmen and oil men and military people and all these other people have conflicts of interest potentially too. It's not just lawyers, because everyone has to deal with the law. And, you know, you have some businessman passing laws that benefit business. It's not like when he retires from Congress, he's not going to go back into business. They'll still benefit him too. 19. The blood gift. Bill doesn't think that the United States should sell military equipment to Egypt. You know, right or wrong, whatever. But he says that because he thinks Obama is supplying an Egyptian invasion of Israel. He says that Obama has taken no steps to fight Iran's nuclear efforts. So Stuxnet, the decapitation program, none of this has happened. Nothing. It's just, he has never heard of any of these things, apparently. And I swear I'm not making this up. He says that Obama is just trying to destroy Israel to satisfy his liberal donors, who are all secret Muslim jihadists who want to support their old leader / friend Adolf Hitler in destroying the Jews. He also said flat out that Obama wants a second Jewish Holocaust. Video 20, Beat Whitey. Apparently multiculturalism and diversity is a liberal ploy to destroy America, and there's also apparently an epidemic of young black gangs running around just beating up white people at random across the country. He claims there's some organized effort to do this. But then again, Bill never links to any of the articles where he gets his information because he's trying to basically portray an isolated incident as some sort of huge widespread movement to scare people into voting for him and his friends. Because, of course, you know, oh, by the way, political correctness is a scheme by liberal leftists to create black racists in the United States to attack whites. This is what Wild Bill says. Because, of course, you know, white liberal leftists want to get jumped on the streets in this racial war they're apparently trying to create. So, video 21, The Worthless Kid. Bill tells some story that never happened about a 4-year-old girl going missing and her mother not calling the cops about it because she doesn't get any money for that kid. Bill blames bad parenting on the welfare system because apparently helping poor families is wrong. He thinks helping poor people is leading up to destroying the country. He then tells another made-up story about someone with an injury Bill didn't consider serious being unable to work. Bill has a problem with about 40% of the country being on some sort of government assistance. So do I, Bill, but only because it shows how badly off most of the country is. And if you want to get technical, all those tax breaks we give to middle-class families, homeowners, business owners, the rich, etc., are also forms of government assistance. Bill says that welfare wasn't intended to be a career, which is true, which is why we reformed it so you can't stay on it indefinitely any longer. Bill also thinks government should, or excuse me, he thinks the government helping poor people is a scheme for corrupt politicians to stay elected, and that the government shouldn't be involved in helping people at all because it is supposed to promote and not provide for the general welfare. Bill thinks the family, friends, churches, neighbors, and then private organizations are supposed to take care of everyone, not the government. There is absolutely no role for the government in any welfare whatsoever. Also, Bill thinks he has a monopoly on compassion. Video 22, 2 secret weapons. Bill says the liberal left is responsible for everything bad in this country, including being stuck in multiple wars with no end in sight. You know, the wars that Bush and the conservatives created, apparently they're Obama's fault now, and it was Obama and the liberals who started this. Also, the bad economy he inherited from Bush, also Obama's fault. He also bitches about the downgrading of U.S. credit. Well, Bill, you know why they did that? They did that because they didn't think any political process is possible because of all the fucking obstructionist shit that you and your friends in the Tea Party keep supporting. Because, like you, the Tea Party would rather burn this country to the ground rather than actually address any of the real problems facing us. Then there's also more general bitching about the education system, same as in every video he makes. He also thinks that Obama has been destroying the Constitution and wants to be a dictator, yet provides no examples. Also, apparently, liberals don't have a God and don't have a country. And just the same basic generic appealing to Jesus and the founders without giving any specifics about what that actually means or how that would fix this country. Just like every Wild Bill video. Video 23, the EDL's Edge. Bill fully endorses, by the way, everything the EDL stands for. Because Muslim immigrants, according to Bill, are invading the UK to force Sharia law on it. Bill thinks that all Muslims everywhere, all of them, every single Muslim alive, wants to destroy every non-Muslim country and kill and convert every non-Muslim everywhere, forever. He doesn't like the fact that the EDL get called racist and thugs. And he's glad there's a bunch of rough, shady people that, you know, work for or are part of the EDL, because then he thinks, you know, the beer-drinking rugby players in the EDL can go fight Muslims. He also claims to have been in London during the 2005 bombing, which I find laughable. And then he thinks that there is unrestricted Muslim immigration to the United Kingdom, which I was unaware of, but apparently that's been going on now. And that the EDL is going to stand strong against the most serious threat England has faced since Adolf Hitler, whilst the, quote, tea and crumpet-drinking coward politicians hide under their beds in fear. 24, Day of Infamy. So this entire video is basically Bill reading out a letter by Judge David Kithel. I'll leave links, as always, to a Snopes article. Well, not always to a Snopes article, but always leaving links. But in this case, to a Snopes article and the WAPO article about this. The great thing about this, by the way, basically, he's reading out a letter that is saying like all these horrible, evil things that are in Obamacare, and he's reading it out as fact. Let me quote the... It's referring to a bill that never passed, but Bill is treating this as if it's current law. Let me read you what a Washington Post article that has some quotes from Kithel about this, by the way. As a former judge of Burnett County, Texas, Kithel is not a healthcare expert, and congressional language can be obtuse. His analysis is often debatable. The assertion of, quote, real-time access to bank accounts appears to be referring to a benign section allowing electronic fund transfers. The claim about doctors' fees refers to boilerplate saying the government will not pay less than rates set under Medicare. Similarly, the bill does not ration cancer care, but allows for a study of whether specialty hospitals are charging more for the same service as general hospitals, and then would actually boost payments in general hospitals. But in any case, he was analyzing a bill that had not yet passed the House. The language was changed before a final House passage in November 2009. Then the Senate in December passed its own, more conservative version of a healthcare overhaul. By March 2010, the House accepted much of the Senate bill with some adjustments. While the email refers to the dangers of so-called Obamacare, Kithel's letter has little to do with the final version of the legislation, which Kithel readily acknowledges. Quote, what I wrote about was a bill that never became law, Kithel said in a telephone interview Thursday. He said he has not had an opportunity to go through the final bill, but knows that some of the items that had concerned him were not enacted into law. But the letter is certainly an email and an internet sensation. A Google search for David Kithel and Obamacare turns up nearly 2,000 examples of his letter posted on websites, blogs, and forums, including as recently as this month. Kithel said that someone had called the newspaper and asked permission to put the letter in an email. The next thing he knew, he was getting calls from around the country. The calls have actually picked up in recent weeks, he said, adding, "It really shows the power of the internet." So Kithel himself says the bill never became law, Bill. So congratulations for spreading your stupid bullshit like you always do. Bill also puts forward the debunked claim that Acorn stole the election and set up a bunch of child prostitution rings, which I'm not going to get into again because I don't care enough. And Bill knows it's a lie. Video 25. Hell or Daytona. Bill has a secret plan to end racism, fix the economy, fix the education system, and keep America strong. But he won't tell you unless you come to his Tea Party thing in Daytona. He then says that Democrats, or at least Maxine Waters, hate America and want to destroy it, so Democrats should come to the Tea Party movement because no Democrat has ever talked to any Tea Party member in history and has never bothered to actually read or listen to anything they have to say. This is basically another one of Bill's Come to My Tea Party videos, but I just really want to know his secret plan to fix all of these things. I'll avoid the West Wing quotes because people get pissed off every time I bring them up now, but there we go. 26. Gun sense. Apparently Bill thinks we should clean up gun violence by starting with Hollywood, because Bill thinks that TV and movies are responsible for all the bad gun violence and that every legitimate study shows that people with concealed permits are the greatest law-abiding citizens in American history. He then tries to claim that Project Gunrunner, that stupid ATF plan to track transfers of weapons sales to Mexican cartels in order to develop a case to prosecute them and shut down the flow of weapons through various American, border gun stores. He thinks that was a secret plan by the Obama administration. I shit you not. It was a plan by the Obama administration, according to Bill, to get American police officers and citizens killed so they could shut down gun stores and destroy the Second Amendment. Bill also claims that this was ignored because apparently Bill never turns on the news. He thinks that this story was not publicized at all. He's trying to use the tragic death of American citizens due to a stupid plan by the ATF as political ammunition to try and smear the Obama administration and scare people into thinking that Obama, whom Bill thinks is a tyrant who wants to kill all the Jews, is going to come for their guns next. Seriously, just shame on you, Bill. (27) Hiking stupid. Bill was really, really happy that two American citizens, Shane Bauer and Josh Fatal, were captured while hiking in Iran. I'm pretty sure most of us are aware of the story. And he says they're anti-American from Berkeley because they oppose the war in Iraq, U.S. policy towards Iran, Israeli actions in Palestine, stuff like that. Just because a lot of people don't agree with what the U.S. does doesn't mean they're anti-American. And your glee at people being unjustly imprisoned in brutal dictatorships because they're liberal really speaks fucking volumes about who you are as a person. And your so-called compassionate conservatism and your love for your fellow man that you claim to profess. Like, this video is so offensive, I'm not really sure how to even address it beyond that point. If Ann Coulter was kidnapped by Lashkar-e Taiba, the DPRK, I wouldn't be sitting here celebrating, even if I think she's one of the few human beings in my country worse than you are. And I wouldn't make quips saying, well, we should just send all the liberals to Iranian prison so they can, because that'll teach them not to be liberals, and then they'll be good conservatives like me. Video 28, Gun Nuts and Skirts. So Bill thinks liberals like women who get raped and murdered and consider them better than women who actually have managed to successfully defend themselves from their attackers. Apparently all liberals just want to attack legal gun owners instead of criminals because they think women should be easy prey for criminals. This is apparently what liberals think, according to Wild Bill. Bill thinks that liberals hate women and conservatives love and respect them. Bill also thinks that liberals just want to, quote, dominate and control the lives of others, which is why, of course, he thinks that liberalism is a mental illness. And, of course, is why Bill thinks that drug users should either be thrown in chain gangs or, have their citizenship revoked, like he said. See video 30, the drug war, Wild Bill style for that. That's his 30th video, not video 30 in this one, I should have clarified, or stripped of their citizenship. It's also, of course, why Bill thinks the U.S. should ban gay marriage, gay serving in the military, prevent kids from going to colleges of their choice, and so on. Bill is all about your freedom to do exactly what he wants you to do. And if you disagree, then he wants to drag you to the bedside of a rape victim in a hospital because apparently you would rather her be raped than her be allowed to defend herself. That's what Bill thinks liberals actually want. Video 29, Chicken Little Patriots. Another God and country video. God and country will fix all the problems, and if we just believe in God and country, everything will be fine. He claims the ACLU wants to get rid of religion from all walks of American life, which of course is why they've tirelessly defended Christians' rights to practice their religion, including the Westboro Baptist Church allowing them to protest funerals in accordance to their religion. Apparently, the education system, which is an evil liberal organization, according to Bill, wants to destroy America, so it is trying to remove pride in American history. Bill says that patriots like him need to stop worrying about what liberals are doing throughout the country. He calls them chicken littles, and they need to stop panicking. I find this kind of amusing because he sat here consistently saying Obama wants to murder all the Jews and become the God Emperor of mankind by stealing your Bibles and your guns and sending to Jesus some sort of death camp in hell. I mean, all you do is make videos screaming about the latest liberal plot to destroy this country. Video 30, American Showdown. So, of course, after he uploads a video telling people not to freak out about the liberals and stop being chicken littles, he immediately uploads a video saying that the liberals are tyrants and he's fighting against them. He says confrontation is inevitable and claims that the Teamsters have called for President Obama to kill the Tea Party because, of course, using the language of war is something that Wild Bill isn't familiar with in his own videos and would be absolutely opposed to. He also says that unions are a bunch of lawless racist thugs because of a singular incident where a black Tea Party member was apparently attacked a few years ago. He, again, thinks that he can point to a few isolated incidents, and he says they're evidence of a massive, I guess, Islamo-fascist, Nazi-supporting atheist, liberal, tyrannical thugocracy that Barack Obama is attempting to establish over the country. What's funny is, though, that if someone showed Wild Bill all of the signs, slogans, etc. from the racists in the Tea Party, he just pretend it never happened or claim they were just secret liberal plants. I mean, he'll take anecdotes that benefit him and ignore anything that doesn't help him. 31. Get used to it. So Bill has a problem with Obama apparently saying he didn't get used to it when referencing higher gas prices and is mad that Obama shows no sympathy. This coming from the guy who thinks that welfare or government assistance is just a corrupt plot and the people on it are just a bunch of lazy parasites who don't deserve any help but should just starve to death. This from the guy who thinks homosexuals are a bunch of deviant perverts who deserve what they get, and this from the guy who thinks we should just send liberals to Iranian jails to cure them of their mental illness of being a liberal. But see, the funny thing is Obama didn't actually say what Bill claims he said. Because again, Bill just gets his fucking quote-unquote news from, well, I'll get to where he gets it from in a second. Well, actually probably an hour from now. But I'll explain this later. But what he said was, quote, "I'm just going to be honest with you. There's not much we can do next week or 2 weeks from now." Obama said he wants to move toward a future where America is less dependent on foreign oil, more reliant on clean energy produced by workers like you. That will happen by reducing oil imports, tapping domestic energy sources, and shifting the nation to renewable and less polluting sources of energy, such as wind, the president says. He has set a goal of reducing oil imports by 1/3 by 2025. But the president said it won't happen overnight, and if any politician says it's easy, they're not telling the truth. Quote, "Gas prices, they're going to still fluctuate until we can start making these broader changes, and that's going to take a couple of years to have serious effect." Obama needled one questioner who asked about gas prices, now averaging close to $3.70 a gallon nationwide, and suggested that the gentleman consider getting rid of his gas-guzzling vehicle. If you're complaining about the price of gas and you're only getting 8 miles a gallon, you might want to think about a trade-in. So yeah, Bill, a bit more detailed than just get used to it. But then again, most things are too detailed for you to understand. Bill complains about people using the government to enforce radical agendas on people while sitting there trying to force a radical agenda down our throats. He also thinks that if you don't drive a big truck, you lack testosterone, aka you're a liberal driving a little sissy-mobile, in his words, and therefore you can't understand economics. So you hear that, women? Because you don't have as much testosterone and you're flooded with estrogen, you can't get economics because it takes testosterone and being a man to get economics. And Wild Bill for America loves and respects women. Video 32, Saving Sarah. So he tries to do this funny joke in his mind where he's like, well, God created monkeys and liberals for a reason. That reason being they both have no morals and they're entertaining. This video is about a non-existent woman named Sarah from Oregon who used to hate Bill and the Tea Party, but then took up the challenge to read up on the Tea Party blogs. And wow, she's suddenly a Tea Party supporter because people left mean comments on Bill's video because no one ever criticizes him based on any political decision he's ever made. I can make up letters too, Bill. Look, Bill, I have my own letter from someone. Dear Rob, hi, I used to be a Wild Bill supporter, but then through the miracles of modern technology, I managed to recover from my persistent vegetative state after I became literate and picked up a second-grade social studies textbook. It was then that I realized that Bill is completely full of shit and has absolutely no idea what he is talking about. Thanks, Rob. Sincerely, I am definitely a real person named Jane from some state like Arizona or Colorado. See, Bill? I can do that too. See how easy that is? Video 33, Marilyn and Jack. Now, I can't really attack this video because he tells two stories that are actually true about a woman he saved from being raped and who later became drug addicted and was murdered by her drug dealer. The second story was about his old partner, Jack, who was shot and killed in a shootout. I can't and I won't attack his stories for those because that's not appropriate. All I can really say is that argument from anecdote can't and shouldn't inform policy decisions. And if drugs were legal, drug dealers either wouldn't exist or wouldn't be as powerful as they are now. And I don't see how you can take what happened to your friends because of criminals and then follow that with attacking Congress because even if you don't like Congress, Congress is better than a bunch of bloodthirsty criminals who'll just kill someone at the drop of a hat. But at the end of the day, I do have to say I'm sorry for your loss, and people don't deserve to get killed in cold blood. Moving on, because I can't actually pwn that video, really. Well, I kind of did, but you know what I mean. Video 34, Bad Jimmy. So again, Bill is trying to make a big deal out of the whole Teamster thing, threatening to kill the Tea Party members like he did way back in American Showdown. I forget the number of that video. He cites the fact that Teamsters have had 4 out of 8 of their last presidents indicted for corruption. Okay, good. They should be indicted if they're corrupt. And then he says that Obama said he'd end the continuous probe into Teamsters if elected. Now, the only source I could find for this was behind a Wall Street Journal paywall, and I don't have access or really want to spend the money to get to it. But he did apparently say that he supported ending the strict federal oversight imposed to root out corruption, according to officials from the union and the Obama campaign. So I can't actually say whether Bill is lying about what he's saying here, but we've all seen how he has a tendency to either make stuff up, inflate the truth, or take it from some third-party source he never cites, in this case ripping off a story from Michelle Malkin. So again, most of this is stuff I already dealt with in a video, or dealt with a few videos, well, dealt with, I don't know, 10, 20, 30 minutes ago in this video from a few of his videos ago, so I'm not really going to repeat it. There's really nothing new there. Which is the problem with Wild Bill's videos and why Ragnarok hits rather hard, because it repeats the same shit over and over and over and over again in these videos. And it's so hard to keep... I'm over halfway done. Going. 35, Destroying Ingenuity. Bill talks about a story of 2 kids that figured out where a police speed trap was, around some corner. So one person stood in front of the corner with the sign saying, "Speed trap ahead, slow down." And then after the cop and around another corner, there's another boy with a bucket and a sign that said "Tips." Bill really likes this story, considers it a shining example of American ingenuity, helping people skirt the law, including important safety regulations like speed limits. Apparently that's entrepreneurship to Bill. He considers them perfect examples of capitalism because of how clever they are. You know, and sure, they're clever, but if Bill is so pro-capitalism and pro-entrepreneurship and ingenuity, why is he against selling drugs? After all, drug dealers are pretty clever people, aren't they? They have to survive against other drug dealers who will try and kill them. They have to survive against a government that wants to throw them in prison and stop what they're doing. Um, you know, they're running and managing an enterprise while under the thumb of a government trying to stop it. And Bill should be really happy about the fact that these red-blooded American, conservative businessmen aren't forking over a cent to the corrupt politician lawyers in Congress that Bill hates so much. I mean, aren't these guys true conservatives, Bill? They're keeping all of their profits, and they're not turning them over all these government welfare programs you hate. And hell, they even believe in the Second Amendment and the right to carry a concealed weapon. In fact, they don't even believe the government has the right to ban any weapons, like AKs, RPGs. Like, really, they're all in favor of the Second Amendment. You should support them, Bill. He also uses the wonderful power of the unsourced anecdote, some guy buying lobster with food stamps, apparently, to show that welfare is evil being used by vicious little parasites who want to suck all the money from hard workers, from America, like Bill. Because you see, one person buying lobster and steak, supposedly, that means there are no poor people in America and no children because ever starve or go to bed hungry or suffer in life. Because Bill says there's absolutely no problem of any children being poor in the United States. Video 36, Execution Solution. So Bill is comparing the Troy Davis execution in this video to abortion. He says that liberals cry crocodile tears over a convicted murderer being executed, but get angry when people try to stop abortions. Bill thinks this is wrong and hypocritical. So Bill seems to think there's no possibility, by the way, of anyone being executed wrongly, wrongly convicted and wrongly executed, and that he doesn't understand why people don't like executions. So Bill's solution, I quote directly, quote, let's strap the murderer face down on a table and have a Planned Parenthood doctor come in and stab him through the back of his skull with a butcher's knife, and then use a high-pressure suction device to suck out his brain. Hey, if it's good enough for our kids, it's good enough for our killers. We'll call it the abortion it should have been. That should have been. He says we'd save money on anesthesia because he claims Planned Parenthood doesn't use anesthesia on the babies, he means fetuses, that they kill. Now, firstly, dilation and extraction, what I believe he's referring to, is only done in late-term abortions, and in the U.S., it's only legal when the life and health of a mother is at risk. It's illegal in virtually every other circumstance, and it makes up less than 1/5 of 1% of all abortions. It's extremely invasive and extremely dangerous, which is why it's only used in the most absolutely worst-case scenarios when the mother wanted to actually have the fucking baby. It's not an abortion of convenience. And then he tries to inflate that, like those small number of incidences with all abortions. And he's like, well, they don't use anesthesia. Well, it's because in most abortions, the fetus doesn't have the ability to feel pain because it hasn't developed its brain and nervous system hasn't developed enough to feel pain, Bill. So why would you use anesthesia on something that physically is incapable of feeling pain? Almost. Video 37 out of 61. Educated Americans. Bill thinks that college is worthless. It's a liberal snake-filled cesspit apparently designed to destroy America. Surprise, surprise. He says that any entrepreneur, journeyman trader, farmer, or rancher is better than any college student in America. Well, Bill, I grew up in farm country. I know quite a few farmers, and virtually all of them have said they're very glad I have my education because it's given me a greater grasp of reality, politics, history, how the world works, etc. And even though a lot of them share your political beliefs for the most part, and a lot of them are Tea Partiers and are right-wing evangelical Christians, they don't think that my education's worthless, and they think it's actually helped me out a lot. And they think education's always a good thing, because even those people aren't anti-intellectual, Bill. So please, stop insulting people, stop insulting workers, because it's kind of offensive. He also claims that the university programs have been, quote, so watered down by political correctness they're worthless. I mean, he trots this shit out there all the time without any sort of evidence. I mean, surely you'd be able to produce some example of how college curriculum or curricula has been watered down so much by political correctness that it's just worthless now. You can back this up, of course, right? You can't. He also brings up some anecdotes saying that some intro to philosopher professor told him that if he believed in God at the end of class, that he hadn't done his job. And then he also says that general ed classes are a waste of time and only hard science people should go to college. Bill says that liberals hate the military because liberals don't have any honor. But you know what, asshole? Do you know how many liberals, gays, atheists, and every other group you don't like, Muslims, there actually are that serve in the military or that work in DOD or CIA or the FBI, people who actually care about their country and have done far more for it than you ever could? And he talks again about the school system, and all I just really have to say is, Bill, just please stay the fuck away from the school system, please. If you actually care about this country, which you don't because you're a pathetic loser, you'd shut up and you'd stay out of things that are too complicated for you to understand. So you'd stay out of most things in your life. 38. Those tolerant libs. So Bill says name-calling is all the liberals have, and honest conversation isn't part of their conversation. He takes offense at being called a racist, while he's openly said, on the other hand, that Arabs want to conquer the entire world and kill everyone who doesn't believe what they believe in. And yes, Arabs, not Muslims. But what about your name-calling, Bill? Let's see. You've called liberals racist, bigots, idiots, stupid, weak, sissies, cowards, traitors, snakes, perverts, drug users, liars, corrupt, filthy, sexual deviants, appeasers, criminals, so on, so on, so on, and so on. So who are you to complain, Bill? And apparently, stereotyping and bigotry are the driving forces behind liberals in America because they can't understand honor, and because when liberals vote for politicians, they purposely vote to tear this country down because they hate America. He also claims that conservatives have been quiet over the past 20 years because they've been practicing tolerance. Just seriously, Bill, just fuck off. You're anti-gay, anti-Arab, anti-any religion other than Christianity and Judaism. You're against the Constitution. You don't fucking sit there and try and pretend like you're tolerant. Video 39, Christian Nation. Bill once again goes off on the tired bullshit that the U.S. was never meant to be a secular nation. He tries to claim that all of the founding fathers were Christian. And then he says, if you don't think they were all Christian, you don't know anything about history. But Bill, the problem is, I know more about American history than you could ever hope to. Do you want to talk about the Jeffersonian Bible, since we're talking about the founding fathers? The letter to the Danbury Baptists, how Madison thought that praying in Congress is unconstitutional. We can go back to Madison's Great Wall of Separation between church and state thing. We can go back to the fact that most of the A-list founding fathers were deists, like, say, Thomas Paine and Jefferson and Madison and Benjamin Franklin and Washington. Well, Washington was Unitarian. And most of them were still in government when they signed the Treaty of Tripoli, Article 11, I believe, which stated that the United States was not a Christian nation and in no way was founded to be a Christian nation. I mean, clearly you would know these things, being the great expert on American history that you claim to be. I mean, this is one of the most tired, ignorant, stupid claims that idiots like Bill put forth, so it's really not even worth going through point by point. Bill claims that basically people hate Christians and just want to oppress them. Bill, no one gives a fuck if you're a Christian. People care when you try and legislate your religion into their lives, like you argue for at the end of the video. Your Bible doesn't give you the right to hate gays and women. Well, you have the right to hate gays and women. You don't have the right to legislate your hate of gays and women like you keep doing. The Bible doesn't have anything to do with government regulations, taxation, and the world's small versus big government like you claim it does. And fuck you for taking Jefferson out of context, by the way, you uneducated thug. I mean, if you want to drag this country back into the Stone Age, you're gonna have a fucking fight on your hand. And your little shiny plastic badge isn't going to impress anyone. 40, the fighting candidate. Basically, Bill doesn't think working with the Democrats is necessary. He thinks Democrats and liberals are cancer. And he also blames Barney Frank for engineering the housing collapse and destroying the economy on purpose, which is bullshit. I think I'll link to at least one article about why that's stupid, I think by Ezra Klein from the Post. Bill also thinks that every problem is blamable on all 535 members of Congress, which is funny because quite a few of those congressmen are Tea Partiers and Republicans that he fawns over on a daily basis. He thinks that Obama wanting gays to serve openly is playing games with military readiness. But guess what, Bill? The chairman of the Joint Chiefs and the Secretary of Defense both came out in support of this policy before it was enacted. The military's done just fine with the change, and I'm wondering if you'd, again, use those same standards when we were talking about desegregating the military. He also keeps talking about sabotaging moral standards. I'm guessing he means things like gay rights, abortion rights, etc. He also doesn't think atheism should be supported or allowed or something like that. Because we're all a bunch of evil bastards who just want to destroy this country. I mean, excuse me, just because I'm an atheist, or just because someone is a liberal, which I'm not, that doesn't mean we hate this country and are anti-American, Bill. If anything, it's going to be some stupid bastard like you that destroys this country. 41, Islamic street justice, another great one. So Bill talks about a true story for once in his life. A Muslim man in St. Louis who published a poem supporting Jews in Israel who was apparently attacked by people, maybe Muslim, who then carved a Star of David into his back and told him not to publish any more poems. So how Bill runs with this story is that this Muslim man, a moderate Muslim, who was attacked by supposedly Muslims, who obviously were not moderate, means that somehow Islam is obviously incompatible with American life, and that moderate Muslims support violence being carried out, quote, in the name of Islam. So basically a moderate Muslim makes a poem defending Israel, and some radicals attack him for it. And Bill takes that as moderate Muslims, like the man who wrote the poem, apparently being in support of violence. And then he claims that Muslims are silent about violence towards non-Muslims. Because he's full of shit. He has the internet at his fingertips. It's not like it's hard to find out, you know, that they actually do speak up about this. And he quotes some poll, but he doesn't even say where it's from. He doesn't give a link to it. He doesn't say when it was done. If you're going to quote a poll with a statistic, you should fucking link to it, Bill. That's the polite thing to do. And if you want to have an honest conversation, you put out your sources and tell people where you get your information from. But why don't you do that, Bill? Because then we would know you're lying. He also claims that the God of the Bible hasn't called for the extermination of anyone who disagrees with him ever, proving that, once again, radical Christians like Wild Bill for America have never actually read their own goddamn Bible. Video 42, Injustice. So Bill once again claims that the left is at war with Christianity, and the ACLU just harasses Christians wherever they go, a claim he makes repeatedly in multiple videos, and I've already addressed, but he then says that Democrats in Congress have called Christians terrorists. I could only really think of them calling the Houthi terrorists, you know, that radical Christian group that planned to attack multiple law enforcement officers, which I thought Bill, as a former law enforcement officer, would have been against, but apparently Bill doesn't think that, you know, planning the cold-blooded murder of American law enforcement personnel is terrorism. But if this is so widespread, I mean, why isn't he quoting specifics? I mean, granted, since apparently the Democrats are just calling all kinds of Christians terrorists, so Bill should be able to quote specific Democrats, calling specific Christians terrorists, but he can't. Like everything, he can't. He also thinks that Christianity has been banned in public spaces. No one can celebrate Christianity in public. But where are they being stopped? Like, the entire country is Christian. Where are they being stopped? The entire country is Christian. I don't understand who can even try and argue this, but here he is. He also thinks, by the way, that judges are criminals. And he thinks that state governors should set up special boards to review and overrule actions of judges that they don't like. So basically, the freedom-loving Wild Bill wants to live in a world where the executive branch has all the power, and your ability to seek justice via the legal system will be at the whim of the governor or the president. He also thinks, by the way, in these committees that overrule judges at their whim, that there should be a permanent church pastor on all of these committees because, of course, he doesn't believe in separation of church and state. Video 43, Florida Tea Party Convention video 879. Oh, look, another Tea Party Convention video that he wants you to register for. No one cares about your speeches or your damn Daytona Beach thing at the Ocean Center, whatever. You're never going to restore honor to this country like you claim you want to. You don't know anything about honor or integrity. And the fact that you try and hide behind the flag or the military at every goddamn turn is just such a fucking disgrace. Just fucking... Almost. 44, homeschool heroes. So he's claiming that people who homeschool children are being thrown in prison now without citing any instances of this, and it's all a plot to get children into Obama's zombie factories, aka the public school system. It's all a plot, according to him, to destroy the country by stripping morality, specifically Christian morality, and replacing it with perverts who hate America. He says that liberalism's the only thing that's wrong with the education system, and here I am sitting here that it was, a lack of quality teachers, too many children in classrooms, lack of resources, lack of computers in a lot of cases, parents who aren't there all the time to help their kids learn. He then says that liberals are racist because black students have bad schools. No, it's because, unfortunately, a lot of them are very poor and live in very bad urban areas that don't have the tax base that a lot of the rich white areas do that can go and pay for schools to have nice things. And it's also because people like you try to stop it every time the states or the feds try and give those districts more money so they can be on par, potentially at least, with the richer districts. I mean, you sit there saying that public schools are a waste of tax dollars, then wonder why they suck so much. 45. Obama's pig. Apparently, frivolous lawsuits make every single thing in America cost a lot more. Every single product. Okay. So he tells a bullshit story, by the way, where he claims that Obama is responsible for the Pigford cases, the second Pigford case, where black farmers in the late 1990s sued the USDA because they were denied loans based on racial discrimination. So Bill claims that Obama, when he was a senator, got a law passed reopening the Pigford case to allow for more plaintiffs. There's one small problem. Bill's lying. He claims that this is some corrupt thing by Obama just to give a bunch of people $1 billion. According to Fact Check, there were tens of thousands of black farmers failed to meet the first deadline. So Congress passed a law in 2008 to try and rectify this and open up a settlement called Pickford 2, basically. Obama supported it but did not co-sponsor it. It was also a hugely bipartisan bill. It was up for vote 6 different times, and it even managed to get the 2/3 vote necessary to override a veto from W. So again, large bipartisan bill. It wasn't some Obama-sponsored secret plan to just defraud the taxpayer out of $1 billion. He also says, well, about 80,000 black farmers got this, but there are only 18,000 black farmers, failing to understand that the census data that refers to the fact that there were 18,000 black farms, not farmers. And none of this money's been given out yet for Pigford 2 as far as I'm aware. So basically, that lying son of a bitch is just, again, just reading shit out from viral emails because he doesn't check his sources because Bill is a liar. So, video 46, Greedy Libs. This is basically Bill's Occupy Wall Street video. He says that all the OWS people are a bunch of greedy, evil liberals who want to steal money from honest rich folk because they're all thieves who want to engage in class warfare. Bill thinks it's outrageous that these protesters are pissed off at the fraud that has been conducted against the American people, who thinks they don't have any demands and they're all a bunch of these lazy hippie liberals. He says if we don't vote out liberal politicians, he and his friends are going to have to fight the greedy liberals in the streets, where real blood will be shed. And yes, that's a direct quote. So yeah, if you support Occupy Wall Street, or even if you don't, like I don't really, don't think, if like me, you don't think the current amount of wealth inequality or money in politics is a good thing, you're apparently just some lazy, greedy thief who doesn't want to get a job. That's the Wild Bill view of OWS. Or so you think, and it's going to get even better. I use the word better, ironically. Video 47, Secret Service Secrets 2. So this video is in reply to a quote-unquote criticism he got from his first Secret Service Secrets video. So he reads off some letter he received from some guy named STME123 that attacked the military and Secret Service and just called them a bunch of dumb hicks. And this is his response to the critics for that video. You know, Bill, why didn't you respond to all the people that showed you stole that list off of a chain letter that purposely lied about what was in the actual book that you got these stories from? I mean, you're sitting here saying no liberal ever wants to discuss anything honestly. So I'm glad you decided to read off one of the worst written comments I've ever seen, instead of like going over the ones that actually showed how you were lying and how you're being dishonest and where you were wrong. Is that just because you're a coward? And by the way, no one buys the fact, your claim that you got 30 emails from Secret Service members about how evil the Democrats are and how great you are for showing all the libtards how bad the Democratic presidents are. So, video 48, Rescuing Uncle Tom. This one is really odd because he thinks that Uncle Tom should be considered a good term, because Uncle Tom wouldn't stop being a slave until his master became a Christian. Then he got sold, beaten, and killed. So this made people mad, and therefore we had the Civil War. So apparently it should be a good term according to Wild Bill, instead of representing someone who's primarily a black person who's being way too subservient to white people. I'm not really going to get into that. I'm just kind of shocked that that's really what he's going to kind of push. And then he says that schools don't talk about the facts that blacks were able to gain office immediately after the Civil War because liberals don't want people to know that all of those blacks were Republicans. Sorry, I and a few other people learned about this at school. I went to a private school, but most of my friends went to public schools, and they all knew about this fact. We talked about it in college quite a bit, actually. Do you think that like colleges and like the public schools just pretend that Lincoln was actually a Democrat? We learned about all this in school, and we learned about the institution of Jim Crow laws stopped this, and then the corrupt bargain when the federal troops pulled out of the South. We learned about how that put an end to this, and there weren't many blacks serving in the South in either party for quite a long time. I mean, you can't really get away with trying to pretend like this is some huge secret that no one knows. It's actually a pretty well-known fact, Bill. And also, too, the GOP is not the party of Lincoln anymore. Quit trying to live off of the work of 150 years ago, because it's rather pathetic that you can't come up with anything more recent than that to show that the GOP is the party of racial equality. 49, gun packing. So Bill tells a story he made up about being harassed by 3 guys while washing his car, and how when they threatened him, he pulled out a gun and scared them away, just so it could seem like he's a badass. He then goes on to say that liberals would say he was wrong for being in a bad neighborhood and yelling at drug dealers and defending themselves. But I just have to keep wondering, who are these liberals he's talking to? I mean, he goes off. He says, quote, I think people should be able to go into businesses without fear of criminals. Women should be able to walk down any street at any time without fear of criminals. And families, same stuff. But who doesn't think this? I mean, do you really think that liberals want people to get shot on the street, murdered, raped, killed, stolen from, etc.? No. No. I don't know anyone except for maybe the criminals who think that the streets should be, as far as I'm aware, the criminals are the only ones who think the street should be unsafe. Like I've never met anyone who thinks that street should be unsafe to walk on and you should have to worry about getting robbed if you're going to, the bank or something. But who are you talking to who says this? I mean, do you just make... Well, I do know you make shit up, so I guess that's a rhetorical question. Video 50. Good news, bad news. This video is kind of funny because he's sitting there bitching at conservatives to go out there and vote because that's how they got stuck with Obama, and that if they're too lazy to go out and vote, they should shut up and stop whining. But also, Obama sabotages America. He hates America, which is why, of course... Bill is mad that Obama killed bin Laden, al-Awlaki, etc., because that was the secret of his sabotage. I mean, really, the plan is so secret that even President Obama doesn't know about his plan to destroy America. But But Bill is a clever one. So he points out the fact that everyone he doesn't like, liberals, Democrats, Republicans, whatever, well, liberals and Democrats, he loves Republicans except when he doesn't, only kept their seats by a few percentage points. So if more conservatives show up in 2012, well, they might just win. Which, guess what? He might actually be right, which is why I keep saying to everyone they need to actually go out there, organize, identify candidates, and vote, especially in the primaries. Kind of a constant thing I always say, but no one listens to me. Video 51, Scoundrels. I'm almost done. Only 10 more. So Bill talks about how the 545 are massively unpopular. The 545... Obama, Congress, and SCOTUS. And he asks why are they still there if they're, so unpopular. He says they're all evil, corrupt, etc., which, again, I find amusing because he's supported and still supports quite a few of those people. He also says, this is because the liberal left uses voter fraud and fakes election results to get these people in office. But then he also says it's because people, aka conservatives, don't show up to vote. But if the liberals just cheat and rig all the elections in the country like he claims, why would showing up to vote matter? If they're just lying about what the actual vote tally is, I mean, showing up doesn't matter because you're going to lose anyways, Bill. So it's like, he also has this like really weird line towards the end. It's like, don't listen to these people when they try to shift blame to everyone but themselves. Because remember, only Democrats, liberals, that was the line, but it's like, because remember, only Democrats, liberals, atheists, and like the gays are responsible for the problems of this country. Never any Christians or Republicans or conservatives. Housing crisis, Barney Frank and the Democrats. Iraq and Afghanistan, liberals and Obama. Bad schools, racist liberals. I mean, see, you just shift the blame to the other side. It's the Wild Bill strategy, but he doesn't want the liberals to take that strategy too, because then he won't have any, he won't have his own gig. Now, video 52. I took an oath. This has nothing to do with the video, but you have to go find that video and look at his shirt because it's just really, it's really fucking weird. His shirt is just creepy weird. And he talks about how anyone who took the oath to defend the country, like him, I guess, and veterans like that need to go deal with the, quote, communists and socialists in our university. He's saying that this is a communist revolution. He says the First Amendment is going to be the first thing to go, and people who oppose the mob will be brutally silenced, summarily executed in the streets, or thrown in jail for, quote, not being revolutionary. He then talks about how the DPRK, China, Cuba, Russia, etc. suck, and then we're just going to get that if we allow this communist revolution to continue. But what is this communist revolution, you ask? Occupy Wall Street. He doesn't directly say it, but he points to, quote, what's going on in our streets today, because apparently what's going on today is a communist revolution. It gets better than this, but not in this video. You haven't even seen. It gets worse. There's only 8 videos left, and it gets so much. I don't like this anymore. 53. Foxes in the henhouse. Bill thinks that Muslims can't be loyal citizens and shouldn't be put in charge of anything national security related. I'm not going to go over everything that Ali Sofan, who I absolutely have like an intellectual nerd crush on, has done for like the 8 millionth time. But if you don't know anything about him, go look it up because it's fucking offensive to have to sit here and listen to fucking frauds like Wild Bill try to act like he's defending America when American Muslims like Mr. Safan have actually risked their lives to defend this country. When Bill's just fucking sitting. Okay, so he doesn't like the fact that there are Muslims being appointed to various posts, apparently, by Janet Napolitano. He references someone being appointed to Obama's national security team whose roles, according to Bill, to, quote, define, interpret, and implement the concept of the Islamic State in modern times in America. Problem is, the only source for this is Jihad Watch. And the person we're talking about is Dahlia Mogahed. I can't pronounce her name. Dahlia Mogahed, who I've actually seen speak before, a well-known American Muslim. And what has she been appointed as an advisor to? The White House Office of Faith-Based and Neighborhood Partnerships, and she's also worked with the government on programs to counter violent extremism. So she's not in his national security cabinet or whatever, but Bill has a problem with Muslims trying to work with the U.S. government to thwart other Muslims who want to actually attack the United States and its allies. Bill has a problem with Muslims assisting the United States government, apparently. He also wants to put 100,000 troops patrolling our border on the south with Mexico. No, just no. But Bill, why stop there? We have a great, frozen wasteland border to the north. Terrorists can buy parkas and they can just come into Canada through their, crazy hippie pro-Sharia immigration laws and flood through our northern border. And clearly, once Canada's communist government collapses, they're going to try and flee into the capitalist haven of Detroit. So shouldn't we be building walls there too? Bill also has a problem with us taking out Gaddafi and not supporting Mubarak because Bill doesn't like the Muslim Brotherhood. Not that many people do. But he says they're going to just create this ultra-massive terrorist army state thing that's going to kill us all on Obama's watch, because I'll get to that in a second. Basically, Bill doesn't think you deserve democracy or freedom if you're an Arab or a Muslim. Now the real batshit starts. He says we won't get any sort of terrorist attack in this country before 2012 because the terrorists want Obama to win because he's too weak to defend this country or purposefully won't defend this country. He claims that Obama has purposefully ruined the economy and has secretly organized Occupy Wall Street from behind the scenes to, quote, tax law enforcement to the max, end quote. He also claims that Obama has put more Americans out of work than any other president because he's never heard of the Great Depression before, and he thinks that liberals want another terrorist attack and would dance in the streets if Americans suffered through another 9/11. So while Bill thinks that the President of the United States is a secret Kenyan Muslim who loves Adolf Hitler, wants to support a second Jewish Holocaust by supplying by supplying Egypt with tanks and allowing Iran to develop nuclear weapons to destroy the state of Israel, and then, while being a sitting president of the United States, which is the United States, undergo a massive terrorist attack that the United States first responders are not be able to deal with because his communist revolution that he's engineered is currently taking up all of their time. Video 54, Hateful Laughs. So after that video, right, Bill starts off a new one talking about the lunatic lies of the left and how entertaining they are. He says, he complains about some comedian that I don't think he named, saying that I hope Rush Limbaugh dies of kidney disease, and he's upset by this. He's like, it's so mean because the liberals start to attack people and children, and who would do that? But I mean, he's going to complain about jokes and poor taste. I mean, he's joked about beating kids, and he's joked about, well, wouldn't it be great if we could send all the liberals to Iranian prisons, or just pepper spray them or beat the shit out of them? I mean, that's what Wild Bill jokes about. I mean, he's no better than that. He doesn't like when people play rough with him and him and his, but whenever he does it to anyone else, it's completely fine. And once again, his solution to all of America's problems: just pray about Jesus and God. Video 55, Wild Bill's Renounce Your Citizenship Program. This one just kind of repeats itself ad nauseum. He says that Sean Penn, Alec Baldwin, and anyone else who keeps saying, like, I'm going to leave the country of blah, 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 should just leave the country, which fine, I don't really care. But then he wants all the liberals to leave the country because apparently all liberals hate America. All liberals constantly talk about how much they love Cuba, Venezuela, the Middle East, and the North Korea. Who... Durr! No one said... Shot alcohol. Fucking... So basically, that was video 55. There's not much there other than that. He just thinks that apparently all these crazy liberals want to go to Cuba, maybe for cigars, Bill. But other than that, I've never fucking heard anyone other than like Danny Glover talk about how great it is. And now, video 56, spanking Republicans. Hey guys, did you know that like neutering a politician, gives you a liberal Democrat? You know that, right? Like if you're not a conservative, you're a dickless, ballless eunuch. That's what Wild Bill has now said. Although I think he said that during the last set of videos too. Apparently, though, Wild Bill thinks that Boehner and the GOP aren't batshit crazy enough for him, and now they're dickless eunuch freaks too. He thinks they haven't stopped enough of Obama's policies, and he's so offended that the Republicans passed the debt ceiling like their hero and his hero, Ronald Reagan. Because, of course, it's okay when Ronald Reagan does it, but not when anyone else does it. And now he says that Obama's a lawless leader. He's a tyrant who violates the law every day. He's apparently violated the Immigration Act, the Defense of Marriage Act, armed drug cartels, used the military in some bad way he didn't specify, other random crap. But he can't give specifics. I mean, clearly, with his law enforcement background, Bill would be the one who should be quoting the statutes that Obama's apparently violated. But he never does this. He never links to any specifics or any stories because they're not actually true. And this is why it's so hard. Almost done. Video 57, the Muslim Challenge. In this video, Bill challenges Muslims to debate him on how great Islam is. His position is that Islam is incompatible with America and should not be allowed to take root in this country, so Bill doesn't believe in freedom of religion unless you're a Christian or a Jew. Because those are the only two good American religions, and atheists, which aren't a religion, but qualify under certain rights, basically, First Amendment rights, and Muslims are just a bunch of like communists who want to destroy the country and aren't true Americans. He also thinks that all Muslims think that Sharia should replace the Constitution, that Jews are evil, and that Israel should be destroyed. Bill, you can't really sit there and claim to want a polite discussion with someone after you've accused all Muslims and Arabs, by the way, of being barbarian thugs who will lie and say and do anything for their faith, and after you've already assigned their position to them. I mean, clearly you don't think they're capable of having an honest discussion, so why are you even pretending like you'd want to have one with one? Because you wouldn't believe anything they said anyways, by your own admission. Video 58, God and Country Above Self. Bill thinks that the U.S. is the only country that engages in foreign aid across the world. Sorry, Bill. Japan, the EU, which is a collection of countries, but still, Norway, they all give lots and lots and lots and lots of money to foreign aid. They're pretty good at it, actually. We do give a lot, but you know what's funny? You want us to stop. You said earlier that we should stop giving foreign aid to anyone. And as for this, you say that you say, quote, oh, every time the United States goes to a foreign country, their military, the poor are happy to see us bullshit. I don't recall us being greeted as liberators when we took Baghdad, and it's not like our presence in Kandahar is exactly welcomed by the natives. We're not these universally loved G.I. Joe, freedom fighter, Justice League people that you seem to think we are. A lot of people don't like us for good reasons and bad reasons. And you sit there and you talk about how it's better for us to give than receive. You want to slash all government services and refuse to give anything to anyone else. I mean, how can you sit there and say, with a straight face, quote, looking out for the less fortunate has been replaced by looking out for number one. The people you constantly attack are actually trying to expand foreign aid as well as domestic aid programs and help the poor. But you consider this evil and immoral and say those quote-unquote parasites just get a job or die, even though many of them have jobs. Bill also doesn't think that OWS protesters would ever sacrifice their own comfort, money, or time for the less fortunate. Because, of course, sitting in a park for weeks or months on end doesn't take a rather substantial amount of time, money, and a loss of comfort, because we all know sleeping outdoors in a sleeping bag, or maybe a tent if you're lucky, is more comfortable than, sleeping in your bed in a climate-controlled building. And he talks about how he likes to help the poor, and it's just... Video 59, challenging liberals. Bill wants to have a live debate with all the liberals because he's been so engaging with his audience here on YouTube and willing to actually discuss anything or respond to comments or valid criticisms. But you know what, Bill? You don't get to demand a live debate and say you want liberals to start being honest and back up their stuff when you have yet to provide a single source for anything you've ever quoted in any single one of your fucking videos, because you're a liar and you either just rip off shit from Michelle Malkin. You never quote anything, Bill. So who are you? Why would anyone debate you? Seriously, you're basically just some like pumped up forum troll with a video camera. And if you don't like cursing, because that's something he doesn't like, because cursing's mean, go fuck yourself. Don't sit there and whine about tolerance and courtesy and say name calling is bad and you do it in every video. I mean, why don't you just say that liberals are a bunch of dickless cowards again, Bill, because you sure love doing that. Video 60, Obama's parasites. He's claiming that, again, Obama's behind Occupy Wall Street, and he says that Obama is creating an army of parasites who just get free stuff from the government and revel in radical liberalism. Of course, Bill won't actually trot out the welfare stats that he says he has that just show like welfare people are a bunch of lazy hippies that never work a day in their life. I mean, how many people on welfare don't work, Bill? Clearly you know, so why aren't you sharing the number and linking us to the stat? You're clearly an educated man, more educated than some dumb college liberal hippie like me ever could be. I mean, I could really stand to gain from your conservative, worldview and the amount of knowledge you have in your conservative brain, because clearly, not going to college has helped you so much. He also says that Obama considered himself a modern-day Robin Hood, which I've never heard Obama claim, but he says that Obama steals from hard workers to create corruption and feed the parasites to keep voting him in office. While Bill also thinks that we need to eliminate all welfare programs in the United States. All welfare programs. Every single one. All food assistance should be stopped, and basically food assistance from the private sector should be boxes of beans, rice, and powdered milk. He also wants to get rid of the entitlement mentality, and he wants to entirely eliminate the social safety net. This is the sort of thing that people, who watch my videos should probably be up in arms about, because now we're talking Social Security, Medicare, Medicaid, TANF, SNAP. Yeah. Head Start, I don't know. It's just... And then, the worst thing about this is, by the way, during the note-taking when I was watching all his videos, he uploaded a new video. The last one I'm doing right now, because it's the last one that's uploaded as of today. Walking Tall again. Bill says that American sheriffs are fighting the federal government and the United Nations globalists. Who does that make you think of? And stealing land from people. He wants to stop the federal government and the United Nations globalists from stealing land from the average citizen. Bill literally says that if federal agents try to enforce valid federal laws, politically correct nonsense, that they, quote, might just find themselves facing a sheriff's department SWAT team and a trip to the county lockup. So basically, Bill thinks the states can overrule any law the federal government passes without it going through the court system, and that local and state officials should interfere with the lawful activity of the federal government. He then talks about how great the Tea Party is because it hates the federal government. And so apparently, though, sheriffs are apparently challenging federal agents enforcing quote-unquote unconstitutional laws, and SCOTUS is backing them. The same Supreme Court he said over the course of the last 100-odd videos that he hates. And he cites a court case, which he incorrectly calls Mac Prince, but that's not the name of it. It's Prince v. United States, Schnuckums. But the court case he cited was from 1997, and he says they said this in that case. Quote, the duly elected sheriff of the country is the highest law enforcement official within a county and has law enforcement powers exceeding that of any other state or federal official. So I looked up that case, or as again you call it, the Mac Prince case, and I searched for that exact line of text in the text thing, the actual text of the decision from FindLaw. Now, I didn't find that in there. But you know, it was rather interesting, by the way. I found it rather interesting that when I started looking for that exact line of text, the only places I saw that were at family-friendly websites like Stormfront, Alex Jones's Prison Planet, and basically almost every single right-wing reactionary conservative blog on the internet. So I'm pretty sure you didn't actually look up the Supreme Court case or read anything about it, especially since they all refer to it as the Max/Prince case. Don't have any information about when it was, and it's actually the Brady Bill case. That's actually rather famous when certain parts of the Brady Bill were found to be unconstitutional. So, where did you actually find that quote, Bill? I am kind of curious. I mean, I don't think you got it from Stormfront because of how much you love Israel. But Alex Jones, I mean, you did refer to the United Nations globalists trying to steal property from the Americans, and it might explain quite a bit about your beliefs. Now, I know this video probably has not been anywhere near as fun or entertaining as the last one. I probably should have just waited until, well, today, I guess now, after I had some sleep, so I had some more energy. But, you know, I didn't, and I just wanted to get this done. Now, so the last time I did this, I said I would never address him again, and then, of course, that I got bullied into it. So what I've decided for this time is just, you know what, fuck this. If I'm just going to be an idiot about this and just keep going back to Wild Bill, why not just, you know, like, why not just go full retard? So what I've decided is, Wild Bill, I have pwned today 61 videos, right? Wild Bill today has 112 videos. So when Wild Bill gets to, let me think, when Wild Bill gets to 225 videos, I will pwn all of the 113 videos he has made from this last video, Walking Tall Again, to his 225th video. I will pwn all of those in one going, and that will be Ragnarok 3. I will pwn 113 Wild Bill videos. Yeah, just seriously, I mean, Wild Bill is a fascist. I mean, he is a fascist. He thinks the federal government. He thinks that basically the executive branch should have all the power to just shut down the courts, fuck the legislature. But he. And again, he thinks Obama is a secret Kenyan Muslim communist who is secretly working with terrorists to destroy this country, and he has set up Occupy Wall Street to tax the police services so much that if we were actually attacked in a terrorist attack, they wouldn't be able to respond. I don't know how, I don't know how else I can put how batshit insane Wild Bill is. Seriously, I don't get it. I just, fuck it. I'm done. Fuck.